Sometimes we notice that people around us may interact with the world differently. Maybe their brains process information and sensory stimuli in a way that ours don't. In some cases, it may be that the person has a neurodevelopmental disorder. Let's learn more. A neurodevelopmental disorder typically appears in childhood. There are a few different reasons for these disorders, and they range from genetic differences, atypical brain development, or prenatal exposure to substances. Two of these types of disorders that you've most likely heard of are autism and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. Let's start by learning about autism. In autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, there are two main features. 1. Restrictive and repetitive behaviors, interest, and activities. 2. Persistent deficits in social communication and social interaction in different settings. Symptoms of ASD often affect behavior at any age. Infants might not want to be cuddled, or children might not learn how to speak. Some repetitive behaviors in childhood might be hand flapping, head banging, or being preoccupied by an activity, like opening and closing a door. Adults can have problems communicating too. In fact, later in life, this kind of behavior might turn into an obsessive interest in a topic, like planes. It's called a spectrum because that impairment that autism causes can vary a lot from person to person. For some people at one end of the spectrum, they have trouble speaking, eating, and aren't able to live independent lives. But people on the other end of the spectrum can often earn school degrees, have romantic relationships, and careers. The term neurodiversity is used by advocates of people of the ASD spectrum, meaning that their way of thinking is valuable. One thing that people with ASD struggle with is called the theory of the mind. It's when someone is able to understand that what I experience in a situation might be different from what you experience in the same situation. People with ASD often struggle to understand this idea. They also can be sensitive to sights, sounds, and tactile sensations. Children are usually diagnosed between 3 and 6 because doctors notice language delays and other symptoms. Boys are diagnosed much more often than girls. So, where does ASD come from? Well, we're certain that it doesn't come from two things: specific parenting styles and vaccines. Neither of these factors influence a child's chance of having ASD. You've probably heard the myth that vaccines cause autism. When two vivid events occur at the same time, people think that they are linked. This is called illusory correlation. Children get vaccinated around the time that people notice language and social skills are delayed. So, adults think the link is caused by vaccines. It is not. Genes, however, do play a large role in someone's chance of having ASD, as well as problems at the molecular level that affect how the brain develops. The thing is, there are many causes of ASD, or you can say is etiologically diverse. So, what are some of the treatments available to people with ASD? Well, there's no cure, but there are some behavioral treatments that can help, like applied behavior analysis. Some doctors use medication to treat more difficult behavior, like tantrums and self-harm. The earlier someone is diagnosed, the better they'll do in life because they'll get the support they need. It's common for children to get a dual diagnosis of ASD and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. ADHD involves persistent difficulty engaging in quiet activities and problems with attention for prolonged periods of time. There are three main symptoms of ADHD. 1. Inattention or a tendency to wander off task, difficulty sustaining focus, and a lack of persistence. 2. Hyperactivity or excessive activity when it's not appropriate. 3. Impulsivity or taking action without planning or thinking. Symptoms have to occur before the age of 12 in order for someone to be diagnosed with ADHD. A third grader who's fidgety at school but can sit for hours reading probably doesn't have ADHD. About 5% of children have ADHD. Most people who are diagnosed as kids still experience symptoms as adults, so most people don't just grow out of it like psychologists originally thought. Oftentimes, ADHD makes it harder for kids to succeed in school, relate to people, and can lead to engagement and delinquency. So, where does ADHD come from? Poverty is one cause. It can also be genetic. Very premature birth, low birth weight, and prenatal exposure to alcohol and smoking can also be causes. Children who experience trauma such as physical, sexual, or verbal abuse can also develop ADHD. ADHD is also associated with the dysregulation in neurotransmitter dopamine and its pathways. So, what are the treatments for ADHD? Stimulant medications like Ritalin or Adderall are often used first. But why would you give a stimulant to someone who's already overstimulated? Well, these medications increase the amount of circulating dopamine so that the person doesn't have to keep doing the same activity to get the dopamine. Physical exercise, meditation, and academic tutoring are some really great non-medical treatments as well. Most of us know someone with one of these neurodevelopmental disorders. Has any of this information changed the way that you might think about their behavior?